Ken Paxton appeared to be out for revenge. We've been saying this after his impeachment acquittal, excuse me.
And his backing of certain candidates, part of a larger rift among the Texas Republican Party. Fox 4's Blake Hansen back with Jeff Engel with a look at how the impeachment and other issues are shaping this race as we see it unfold. Blake.
Yeah, and we've got multiple fault lines really between the Republican Party. It's not one clean split, but there is clearly an animosity within the party that we've seen. And with Ken Paxton, we've seen almost a mirror to his political life recently to a candidate he supports in former President Trump. Both have had legal challenges. Both have successfully fended off impeachments. But I'm curious what you think this means for the Republican voters. There's been so much focus on these fights, these battles, not as much on some policy issues. Obviously, the border is a dominant policy issue Republicans have been focused on. But as we head into November, what do you think the significance is of there being so much talk about these legal battles and these fights?
You know, I think it really shows that the Republican Civil War that's been going on for many years now, since at least 2016, is really becoming a personality test. It's not even really or tried to get out of office. The politics is not the question. The question, are you going to be with me as the individual or not? And that's a remarkable thing, to be honest, because what it does is it demonstrates to voters that I think you're not actually a candidate who's looking forward if you're constantly trying to get back at the candidates who voted this year, trying to punish your opponents and only give help to your supporters. You're not really talking about the future. You're only talking about the past. And the truth is that says that the Republican Party is more concerned in some ways with fighting itself than they are with solving the problems of the country. And I think that's not a great recipe for them. I think we need to remember that Donald Trump's candidates in the last several midterms, at least on the national level, have done much poorer than the people who he did not endorse. So across the board, it seems as though Donald Trump, again, is very, very popular, as is Ken Paxton, within the Republican Party, but not necessarily beyond that. Now, of course, in Texas, that's all you need. But on a national level, I don't think this bodes well for Republicans if they keep focus in their party.
That's why you keep on hearing Nikki Haley say that if we could get to the general election, I feel like I'm the stronger candidate. We were talking about some of those races in Collin County. Jeff Leach's, he was one of the more came out and basically said, yes, I am in Collin County along with Ken Paxton. I am a Republican. I know Ken Paxton, but on this issue of impeachment, I feel like we need to do the right things, and it can be okay for the Republican Party to basically police itself. But that seems unpopular, at least among the more, ardent Republican voters nowadays. Long term, do you think that can be a winning political strategy?
It's a winning strategy in Texas, at least so far. I mean, these are mostly solid Republican areas that they don't need to worry about. But the truth is that as the primary system has gone on over the last several cycles, for both sides, by the way, Democrats and Republicans, we've seen both cycles move to the extremes of their parties. And at this point, I think what we're seeing is who can be not just the best candidate, which is what a primary used to be about, trying to find the best person to win in the general election. Right now, we're primaries that are essentially who can be the best person to represent the anger within our party. Play well on the national stage. Play well. If you're only thinking about the past, you're usually the candidate that's losing.
And we'll see probably in the next few months as some of those candidates trying to kind of pivot their strategy out of primary mode and toward the general election as well. All right, Stephen Clarice, for now, we'll send it back to you.